Thank you very much to everyone who's attending today. We're Crunch, we're online accountants, we're based down in Brighton. I'm really pleased that I've got Luke Young, our client education specialist, with us today. He's an absolute guru at using Crunch in all our software, far better than I am. But I'm Jake Smith. I'm our content strategy manager at Crunch, and so myself and my team are responsible for all of the content and the knowledge articles and things that hopefully you've explored and seen on the website. So today we're going to cover how to ace your Crunch-free accounting software. I think hopefully it looks like 60% of you had said that you have logged into Crunch-free, so hopefully you've started to have a go and found some bits. For the 40% who haven't yet tried it, hopefully today will give you the confidence to do that. We are going to record the webinar and we'll make sure that we send a recording of the webinar out to everyone, and there will be follow-up webinars to come. We've got 45 minutes today that will get us through just about all of the basics, but it's really well featured software, so we won't manage to get through everything today. But if we can just go on to the next slide, Luke, just to confirm what we're going to cover off today. So we're going to cover setting up your account, so that's adding in your business details, updating a logo and things like that. We're going to cover banking, so adding your bank accounts and setting up free open banking feeds, which we'd strongly recommend you do as long as your bank's supported. We'll cover creating suppliers and recording your expenses, some of the quick wins around expenses, particularly using our apps Snap and TripCatcher, and things like setting up recurring expenses. We'll cover up setting up clients and acing your invoicing, and we'll have a brief introduction to reconciling your account, but we're more likely to cover that in a follow-up webinar. And then we'll also touch on what and where is the help center, so how you can find out all of this stuff, even if we're not on a webinar for you to ask. And I'm very happy to take questions as we go through the session. I'm going to be managing the session. Luke's going to be concentrating on showing you how the software works. So if a question feels particularly relevant, I'll interrupt Luke, but otherwise we'll try and take those at the end because we've got quite a lot to get through. So without further ado, I'll hand over to you, Luke.
Perfect. Thanks, Jake. Right, so when you're logged into your account, you'll probably, this is going to be your homepage, and this is a brand new account, so it's a like-for-like replica of what you're likely to see on the homepage. So this section up here is a dynamic field, so this will rotate every time that you log in, so it will provide you with some tips, some sort of general ideas of where to start. So as you can see, it says add a bank account, it'll give you the link to getting started and so on. To the right hand side, this again is dynamic, so this will change and it will just give you some idea of the integrations, the additional features that you could have integrated with your Crunch account, like TripCatcher, for example. Snap will appear here as well, so keep your eyes peeled on those, because chances are there's going to be something there that will really help you with your administration and speed up things quite a lot. Underneath, you've almost got step-by-steps here. So these two here are the two that I would consider the foundation of setting up your account. So adding your bank account is critical. So this will be just simply your sort code and account number. That way you can start to raise invoices, you can start to record your expenses and things like that. And then if you want to customize your invoice, you can upload your business logo. Now, in order to get to the business logo, you could do it through this link here, or you've got your settings in the top right. So if you select this, it will be different for each of you. So this is your account settings. Go here, and then these are also customizable. So if, for example, you've got a business that trades under a name, change this section here and that will appear on your invoices. You can update your business address, of course, that's super important. I mean, this one here is completely made up. Yours might even say the same thing, to be honest, so just make sure that you change that before you start to raise your invoices. And then you've got your business logo here as well. So these three are absolute. You've got to do these, make sure that these are changed to be your own business. If in the future, I'll skip ahead a little bit. If in the future you wanted to export any of your data, so these are any of your invoices, your expenses, anything, you can do that all through here as well. So you've got those options. And then lastly, you've got some personal information that you could update, you know, phone number, your marketing preferences, things like that as well. So first of all, though, let's go ahead and set up a bank account. So all you'd need to do is go to the banking tab over here on the left, use the drop down menu here and go to accounts and cards. Once you've selected this, you're probably seeing exactly the same thing. Okay, so you've got no accounts at the moment. So let's go ahead and add one now. The two options you've got here, this one, add a bank account, is for current or savings accounts. This one, of course, is for your credit cards account. So just make sure you're pressing the right one, whatever it is that you're about to add. So we'll go ahead and do a bank account. Now, the display name, this field here, this is purely for your own reference. So if you end up with multiple bank accounts, just make sure you're able to distinguish one account from the next. You can keep it as simple as you like or make it as complex as you like. It's entirely up to you. But in this example, I'm just going to call this one current for the sake of ease. Okay. The next item here, bank, is just simply who the provider is. So I'll go with HSBC in my example. Now, the opening balance, this is really, really important. So as you'll see underneath, it said this is the balance at the start of your first financial year with Crunch, the 6th of April. Now, if you're just opening up a new business bank, the chances are it's going to be 0, at which point you can keep it as that and carry on. That's fine. If you're joining perhaps from a previous year, you know, you've been trading for quite some time and you do have a different bank balance other than 0 at this point, make sure you check your bank statement for the first entry on the 6th of April and put that figure in here. This is so then that it aligns from one year to the next, and it means that your accounting records are accurate and you're not missing out on any important financial information that will go into your self-assessment and things like that, for instance. So just keep your eyes peeled on that one and put in the exact number here. The next box is just typically, is it a business bank or is it a personal bank? So you just need to tell the system what it is that you're using. My advice to you though early on is to always try to keep your personal and business finances separate, okay? I know that as a sole trader, you can of course use your personal bank account, but for just managing things and knowing financially where you stand, try to look at setting up a separate bank account so that you can keep all of your business money in one account and therefore keeping your own money in your own personal account. It just makes things so much easier to manage as well. So I'm going to go ahead and press business bank account. I then just need to confirm that it is a £sterling only account using this checkbox here and put the sort code and account number in. Now, one thing I will say on the sort code especially is just make sure that you are putting the exact sort code in. The reason being, which we'll have a look at in a second, is because this is where the open banking functionality really comes into play. So if you've got a bank account that is supported by open banking, as soon as you've put the correct sort code in here, Crunch is going to recognize whether that feature is available for you. Okay, so just make sure that you put the right one in. I'm going to totally make one up at the moment, but don't do that. Put the right one in. All right, so I'm going to make one up here. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and press save. Okay, so now what you're seeing here is the bank account card that I've just set up. Okay, so you've got a current card, you've got the balance of the account, and you've also got some information about bank reconciliation, which we'll look at in just a moment as well. Okay, now the open banking feature is this icon here. Okay, so this now tells me a free feed is available for your bank account. All I would need to do is press connect your bank. Now, open banking, for those that don't know, is an integration feature where you can automatically have your statements uploaded into your Crunch account. It makes things super easy. It's painless as well to set up, and it's completely free. So if it's there, absolutely go for it. Set it up, and that will make your life an absolute breeze when it comes to updating your accounting records as well. So check that out. If you've got that there, crack on with it. Get it set up as soon as possible. All right.
One very quick question, Luke, that has come in was just saying, what happens if you started in the middle of a financial year in terms of the balance of an account? I think presumably the answer would be if you have started trading, for example, in August of that financial year, then you would, and you started with a balance of 0, then you'd put 0 in, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, if you've only just started trading, if you've only just started the business bank account, 9 times out of 10 you're going to have 0 balance straight away. I guess the only time that you may not have a 0 balance is if you have to deposit some sort of funds in it first before it becomes active, at which point that would then be the opening balance instead. But I would always recommend going back to the very, very first transaction, seeing what that balance is on that date when you first opened it, and put that in, and that should solve that. So yeah, but 9 times out of 10, it's going to be 0. So now that you've got the bank account included, I'll show you a credit card as well, because why not? I mean, you'll see that the process is more or less the same, except this time, because you've now got a bank account here, go to the bottom right and use this little new plus button down here, and then you select new credit card. Form's very similar. So again, the display name is just what what you want to see on that dashboard. The last 4 digits of the card. Again, you've got the opening balance scenario again, so keep that in mind. You've also got to determine whether it's personal or business. And then lastly, is it a pound only credit card? Go ahead and save that. And this also gets added to your stack. Now, these are separated, as you'll see, by bank accounts and credit cards. You can add as many as you like. You're not limited. So, if you do end up with 4, 5, 6 bank accounts, that's fine. Add them all in. You're not going to be stopped. Okay. So that's it in a nutshell when it comes to adding your bank accounts. Now, the next item that I probably should move on to is expenses, because if you've just started your business, you're likely to have startup costs, and therefore you're going to probably want to add some of your backdated expenses in. So if you go to the expenses tab, as we can see over here, now the first port of call should actually be your suppliers. Okay, I know it's probably tempting to just go, right, I'm just going to start whacking in expenses. Go to suppliers first, because this will save you a lot of time in the future. And a supplier is someone that you buy goods or services from, or a business that you buy goods or services from. So someone like Apple, Amazon, anything like that, or even for public transport, TfL, whatever it is, these are your suppliers. I would say try and add as many suppliers in first as you can. So if we go to the bottom right down here, or if you are seeing an image in the middle that says you've got no suppliers, click add new supplier instead. But I'm going to go to the bottom right, press this icon here. Now I only need 2 bits of information. Okay, this is why it's really easy to set these up in batches. So the name is just who is it that you're buying these goods or services from. Now, I personally would recommend keeping quite regular everyday expenses quite generic. So for example, food items. I'm not going to ask you to sit there and list every single shop that you buy food from. It's pointless. You might as well just set up a supplier called food. And then if you set a default expense type, so using this list, go down to subsistence, wherever that may be. There it is, under travel and subsistence. Now, when I save this, this gets added to my list of suppliers. And then when I create expenses for food in the future, I can just pick that supplier. So I'll show you that in a second. I'll go ahead and create another supplier real quick. Do the same again. This time, let's go ahead and let's do business mileage. Business mileage. And then I change this to mileage allowance and save that one. This will then get added to my list. So go through this first, add as many suppliers as you can possibly think of. So food, travel, mileage, any software licenses, Adobe, anything like that. get all of those added in as a long list first. Once you've done that, go to the expenses section over here, select create an expense, or use the button in the bottom right corner. And then you've got your supplier drop down menu. So once you've got your supplier list created and you select this drop down, they will all appear here. Now, if you have an expense that you haven't set up a supplier for yet, don't worry, you can still create a new supplier using this menu here if you want to. But let's go ahead in this scenario and create one for food. Okay, so I'll select food. All I then need to do is put the date in. You'll notice that I can't enter a date in the future, but you can enter dates in the past. So if you are doing some backdating, absolutely fine. You can go back as long as you like and start creating those expenses. Okay, let's go ahead and say I spent on the 19th. If I've got any documentation, so if I wanted to attach a receipt, you can do that here as well. You can also add a note. So this is just another means of identification. So let's say that I was creating a public transport expense and I wanted to differentiate the journeys. I could put where I was going to in this note field down here. But as it says, it's completely optional, so you don't have to use it if you don't want to. This button here is quite interesting because you're able to attach expenses to invoices. So if you are working for an end client and perhaps they are paying for your travel, or if they're kind enough to buy you a bit of food, you can attach the expense that you're creating to an invoice as well. So I'll go ahead and do that just so that when we go through invoicing, I can show you that as well. So I'll go make chargeable to a client, and then you can pick from your list of clients who you want to attach the expense for. So if I go ahead and select eCrunch as my client, and lastly, you've got add a reference. Again, this is very similar to Note, but it's just another means of you being able to distinguish items if you wanted to, right? So I'm going to leave all that as is. So the important ones are supplier, the date, and if you want to use any of these two, so attach a file or charge to if you want to add it on an invoice. Next up is just simply adding your line items. So this is just a description of the item that you've purchased. So again, it can be as simple or as complicated as you want. So lunch, that'll do for me. You'll notice that the expense type is already there. And that's because of the supplier that I've selected. So going back to that default expense type that we set earlier, this is almost like a shortcut. So I've selected food. Because I've selected food, it knows that it's going to be a subsistence expense. Now, if you do want to change it, you can. It's not locked in at all, but it's there if you want it. But like I say, if you set up all your suppliers first, most of the time you're just going to be able to skim over this and move on. The next item is the VAT rate. Now, due to circumstances at the moment, you've got a few options in here. So you can select it as standard, you can select it as reduced, you've got 0, exempt, outside of scope, and so on. Normally, if I was to change this to business mileage, for instance, you'll see that the VAT rate automatically changes. And that's because due to the expense type that's been selected, the system intuitively knows whether VAT is applicable or not. Okay, so again, most of the time, once you've set an expense type, the VAT rate will change correctly to reflect what it should be. Okay, but in this example, I'll change it back to food so you can see again. And let's go with standard rate VAT. The VAT rate will show on your receipt, by the way. So if you don't know what it is, just keep your receipts and then just quickly check on there, and it will tell you what the percentage is that you've been charged if you've been charged VAT. Okay. Next up is putting in the total amount. So this is everything. This is including VAT if it applies. So let's go with the amount 580. And then lastly, it's just the payment details. So this is just how did you pay for it? So the date will normally reflect the first date that you've selected because you're paid for the item simultaneously. The money will come out at the same time. If for any reason there is a slight delay, you can change this as well. So this will say, okay, I bought the item on the 19th, but the money didn't come out of my account until a bit later. But most of the time, these two will remain the same. Payment method, how did you pay for it? Which bank account did it come out of? So if you've got more than one account, you can select that from the drop down here. But because I've only got the one, it's just selecting this for me. If I change this to the credit card, you'll see that it changes to be only the credit card as well. So keep your eyes on that. And then you'll also notice that these two figures also reflect the same amount as well. Okay. Now, if I am whizzing through a load of expenses and I just very quickly want to backdate things, let's say I'm going through a batch of food item expenses, rather than going back and forth, just click Save and Add Similar. It will take you back to the form again. You'll see that it's populated a lot of the information for me, but all I would then need to do is change things like the date, for example. Okay. Once you're happy with it though, just go ahead and press Save. And then you'll see both of those now added to my list. So I created one without a recharge and one with, and that now shows that this expense is waiting to be attached to an invoice as well. If you need to make changes or delete any items, you've got these icons over here to the right. So the pencil is of course edit, the bin icons to delete. And if you did want to create a similar expense again, you can use these three dots and simply press create another like this, right? So that's your expenses in a nutshell. Really slick, really quick. The other thing I would say is to check out the Snap expense app that Jake mentioned earlier, and also TripCatcher. So Snap is an expense app. You can get it from the Play Store and the Apple Store. That will basically let you take a photo of your receipt and it'll upload the information into your account for you. So that's another way that you can very quickly get your information into the account. So that's definitely worth checking out when you get a moment. And I'll show you all the additional bits and bobs that you can add to your account towards the end as well. So let's move on. Oh, one thing before I forget, recurring expenses. This is actually super handy. So for any direct debits, standing orders, anything like that, why manually enter them every single month when you can literally get the system to automate everything for you? So if you go to recurring expense, create a new recurring expense here, or use the icon in the bottom right. And this time, like before, let's say, okay, I haven't got a supplier set up at the moment. I'm going to go ahead and create a new one. This time I'll do it for Adobe. And let's say it's for a bit of software that I'm paying for monthly. Now I get the opportunity to determine, okay, how often does it repeat? Is it monthly, weekly, yearly? So I'll leave that as once a month. When does it start? These you can actually arrange for the future. So let's say I'm not going to start paying this until the middle of the month. You can determine when it ends. So almost creating a schedule. So does it ever end? Does it end on a specific date or after a specific date? So if I go with on a specific date, I'll just skip forward to September. I can add a line item here. You'll see that it's chosen the software type for me again. It's chosen the VAT rate for me again. So I'm happy with that. And I'm going to completely make up an amount now. I've got no idea how much licenses are, but I'd imagine that's probably about a quarter of the actual cost, but we'll go with it. So 58.10, and then the payment method. So how are you paying for this monthly? So transfer out of business account, then I'll go ahead and save. This has now set up a recurring schedule for me. Okay, so as we can see, it's for Adobe, it's for this amount, it's active currently, and the next occurrence is going to be on the 15th of March. All that's going to happen now is every 15th of the month, this expense item is just going to keep creating up until that point when I've told it to stop. Okay, so I would strongly recommend doing this for as many items as you possibly can when it comes to things like licenses, softwares, and so on. So there's your expenses. Next up, we're going to have a look at invoicing. Now, if you go to sales, invoices, you've got a few options here. Okay, so if I go to the dashboard, you'll see that the first thing I need to do is add my business address. So because I didn't update it on the settings page earlier, it's now telling me, well, hang on, you've got to include your business address before you can continue with this. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to save my business address. Now, this is what's going to be added to all of the sales invoices, okay? So in order for you to then start adding your own your invoices to the system, go to sales invoices.
Just while we're waiting for that to load up, Luke, might be worth just pointing out with the expenses things, you do need to make sure that any expenses you put in are actually allowable. And we have a number of articles and things. Luke will show you where the sort of help for stuff is. If you're on one of our complete accountancy packages, then you have our client managers and accountants to help you with this. But with Crunch Free, you need to make sure that you are double checking that you're putting things in correctly.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually. Yeah, so business expenses are categorized by HMRC as wholly and exclusively for business purchases. So any sort of, personal shopping and things like that, they will not let you claim for that. So you've just got to think to yourself, am I buying this for the sake of the business? The answer is yes. Most of the time you can claim for it, but definitely check out the article Jake said to make sure that you are able to. Okay, so once you've got your business address in, you're absolutely fine to go ahead and start adding your own invoicing. So all you need to do, you can either use this button down here or this one in the top right. So I'll go ahead and use that one. Now, like your expenses, you've just got to specify who it is that you're sending the invoice to. So from this drop down, I can add eCrunch, or if I need to add a new client, use this button here. You can then begin entering the details of the person that you're providing a service for. So in the company name, you could put, let's just go with Apple in my example. That can also be an individual, by the way. I know that it says company, but if you are working with an individual, just put their name in that field, that's fine. You can also set a default invoice currency so that when you select this client, it will always invoice them in this currency that you specify, but you have got a handful of different currencies if you want as well. So I'll keep that as pound sterling. Payment terms is just simply how long you're giving your client to pay for your services. The standard will be 28, but you can change that to whatever you like. Email and website aren't essential. This is just some extra information if you want to include it. So this is their company website, or if they've got their own personal website, you can add that in, but you don't have to. So we'll leave those for now. The important thing, in order for you to start using Crunch Free to send sales invoices, are the contact details. So use this button here to add a contact, put their name in this field, their email address in here, and then you could also add telephone and role if you wanted, but they're not essential. Make sure you tick this box for including email. And if you have got multiple contacts, you can just keep adding them so that you'll have multiple contacts under this one client. So you don't end up with a list full of clients that are more or less the same. So I'll keep that one as it is. Billing address is where they're trading from. So again, I am going to make this one up. Once you've got that in, you've got a couple of additional features down here. So sales invoice note, you could use this to just add something nice to your invoice when you send it. So it could just be, thank you for your service. Or you could just completely leave it blank. It's up to you. The important thing to make sure that you have checked is the bank account details box here. So once you've checked that, pick the bank account from this list that you want to be paid into, and then these will be attached to the invoice. So once you send it to them, they already know which account you want to be paid into. So absolutely make sure you've got that on there. And then lastly, it's just a late payment reminder. Now this can save you a bit of an awkward conversation, shall we say, if hopefully not, but if someone doesn't pay you in time. So if you check this box here, you can then specify, right, my invoice is now 2 days overdue, so I want the system to start generating overdue reminders, and I want them to continue for 2 days thereafter. So this will carry on until your invoice actually gets marked as paid in full as well. You can either just give yourself a gentle nudge to say, hey, this client hasn't paid you, which a lot of people will use. That's fine. If you just want to give yourself a reminder and then send something to them separately, a bit more personal, not a problem. But if you do want the system to email both yourself and the client, click this box instead. All right. Once you've done all that, save the client down here. You'll get a little creation message at the top. Then you can go back to invoices, go to new invoice, and then your client will appear in this list. Okay. So as you see, once you've picked the client, their info starts to populate down here. It's got the address, the currency that I chose, the payment terms, and so on. I just need to now tell the system when I want this invoice to be issued. So if you're doing it on a daily basis, just use this button here instead. If you are backdating, so if perhaps you're using timesheets or you've got a self-billing and actually you're just using this for bookkeeping purposes and you don't need to send it, you can go back as far as you like and pick the relevant date in that case. But I'm going to go with today. Client reference field, you can actually use that to try and synchronize invoices if you are self-billing. So if they've already got some sort of numbering system and you want to put that in here, absolutely fine. You can do that, and then that will show on the invoice when you issue it. So actually, I'll leave that on there for now. Next up is the invoice option. So these two check boxes here, so line item type. Simple is if you're just charging a total service cost. So if I then keep this checked, press add line item, put a description of your service in there, and then you put the net amount in here and press save, you'll see that it is just charging a total figure of £1,000. If you are charging in time instead, and you need to put a rate and a quantity of hours, press detailed instead, do add line item, put a description in again, but this time you can just put your rate and your hours in. And once you save that, it will then do all the maths for you as well. Okay. If you need to delete or edit items, you've got these two icons here. And if for any reason you needed to add a discount, you can also do that and then save it, and that will take off the cost for you as well. Okay. That's really it when it comes to invoices. As you can see, you've still got the same options here that you had when you were setting up the client. So if you wanted to add them and you hadn't originally, fine, you can do that. You can set up the payment reminder in the note, but you will see, because of the way I set up the client, it has chosen the bank account for me, and it has also set a late payment reminder. So I'm happy with that. Lastly, you can upload documents. So if you have got supporting documents or anything like that that you want to include, that's more or less it. I guess these two buttons down here, save as draft, is just it's an invoice that's not official yet. So it's something that can be edited, you can change it, you can even use it to send a quote or an estimate out to a new client if you wanted to. But if you're happy with it and you want to make it official, go to preview and issue. You'll see it's now been created. This is a summary of what you're going to send to them as well. So you'll see it's got all of the info that we put on earlier. And then if you want to issue and email directly through your Crunch free account, use this one. Or if you're backdating and you don't need to send it and you're just updating records, use issue invoice instead. I'm going to go ahead and press issue and email. As you'll see, it's now saying, okay, who do you want to email? So like I said earlier, if you've got multiple contacts, you can specify who it's going to. The email subject, you can change to be whatever you like. This is just a dynamic field, so it'll update when you send the invoice. If you don't want it in there, just delete it, add something else instead. And then obviously the body content you can change to whatever you want it to be as well. If you're happy though, go ahead and press send. You'll see it's now been issued and sent to the client, and you'll see it listed here. So as you start to send more invoices, this list will just keep being added to. So you'll see the labels over here as outstanding. Once you've been paid, this will update. So let's skip ahead and say you've now been paid. Find the invoice that you've received payment for, go to the options menu and use this one here, record client payment. Once you've selected that, all you need to do is say, right, when did I get paid? So put the date in. How did you get paid? They put it into the bank account that I requested and the amount that I received as well. Okay, then just go ahead and press save. Now, before I do that, it's worth mentioning that if you have only received a partial payment, that's fine. Just make sure that you change this field here to the actual amount that you've received, and then also change this allocated field down here to the amount that you've received. Okay, you'll see that that's now changed as well. And what happens is it now says, right, I have received £2,000, but there is still an amount outstanding. So that hasn't been settled yet. So I'll just go back. I've now, let's say, been paid the final portion of it. Do the same thing. You'll see that it knows that there's 300 outstanding. It's put the remaining amount against the invoice. Save. Now it's been marked as paid in full. So that's it when it comes to your invoicing. It's really, really simple, really, really quick. So make sure you set up your clients, get your invoices raised, and get paid for the services that you do as well.
We've had quite
Lastly,
a
I'll
few
quickly show
questions
you.
Sorry, Luke. We've had a few
Yeah,
questions coming
go
in.
on,
There's
mate.
one that seemed appropriate to ask now. The others we might have to get back to you at the end because I'm conscious we're running out of time. We had a question about if your client pays you one payment for 3 or 4 invoices, what should they do to match them all up?
That's
So you've
fine. All
raised
you
3
need to do
invoices.
is create. That's fine. So let's say you've got 3 separate invoices and they've paid you in bulk. So make sure that you've got those 3 invoices raised in the system first, all as separate invoices like we've just done. So just new invoice for each one. Then what you'd want to do is go to client payments, this one here, do a new client payment and record that first. Okay. Then what happens is your invoices. So let's say Apple, I was doing exactly that thing. So Apple have sent me, let's say 10 grand, which is split over 3 invoices. Go to client payment, choose the client, put the date that you'd received it, the method and the total amount that you've got. What then happens is the system in this section here will recognize those 3 outstanding invoices that you haven't marked as paid yet. So all you'd need to do is put the money into the allocated fields, save it, and then all 3 of those invoices get marked as settled, but you've only recorded 1 payment to cover the 3. So that's how you would go about doing that. If you want more information about that, there is a help center article for that exact scenario, but in short answer to your question, you can absolutely do that. Raise the 3 invoices first, record the client payment in this way, and then allocate the money to the individual invoices that appear in this section here. So yeah, but yeah, do check out the help center article if you want a bit more guidance and support. There, you know, there's screenshots and things like that as well. So jump on there if you can. Just search for unallocated client payments, and you'll find something for that there.
Luke, is it worth just showing them where the help center link is?
Yeah. So the next thing to do if you want to find articles and any more support, in the bottom left-hand corner, you've got this little button here, the Can We Help container. If you select this, this will actually bring up all of the help center materials that you could possibly want. So you can search it from within the app. It will find the info in there for you. You can actually even look at our collection of help videos as well. So you can click there and it will take you through to the walkthrough series. But let's just say this one, for example, if I select this, it will then take me through to the help center, and then you can start searching all of the other materials that we've got on there. So that's definitely worth using if you do get stuck, because I can guarantee you there's going to be something on there that will really help you out. So make sure you check that out when you get the chance. Other than that, that's probably all we're going to have time for, really. I guess the only other thing that I could probably show you would be just the add-ons, like I mentioned earlier, and I'll very quickly skim these. So these are any additional services and bolt-ons that you may need for your business. So ask an accountant if you want to chat to one of our guys, you know, for an hour or so about your business, anything like that, that's fine. You've got an investment in pension service, debt collection. I won't chew your ears off on all of them, but just be aware that they are there, and there probably is going to be something that will suit what you need. And there's the expense app and trip catcher that we mentioned earlier as well. So that's probably all we've got time for at the moment. I am conscious of the time, like Jake said. Obviously, when it comes to bank reconciliation, I didn't want to rush into that because it's not super complex, don't get me wrong, but it probably needs its own session to give it the time it deserves. But my takeaway for you is set up open banking, and then you can join us on the next one for bank reconciliation, and we can go through all of that together. And hopefully then you'll have a statement ready to be reconciled, and we can do that together as well. But that's it from me, so I'll hand back over to Jake at this point. I hope you guys have found that really helpful and informative. If there's any questions, let us know in the chat, and we'll get back to you on any of this at all. So I'll hand back over to you now, Jake.
Okay, do you want to just go back to the slides for me, Luke?
Yep.
So I'm conscious that we have got some questions. They're quite specific to people. So I think what we'll do is we'll go back by email after the session with answers for you, just because I did see them coming in, but they felt, other than the ones I did bring in there, that they felt a bit more confusing. But sorry, not confusing, a bit more personal rather than general. So just for a recap, we talked about how we update business details, update a logo, how to add bank accounts, and in particular, hopefully your bank is supported by our open banking service, because that will make your life so much easier. We covered creating suppliers and recording expenses, setting up clients to create and send sales invoices, and we briefly touched on reconciling your account. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a follow-up webinar, probably 2 to 3 weeks, where we cover off more of the reconciling. But this is reconciling is an important part of getting your accounts ready and actually making sure that everything is totaling up. And then we quickly looked at the help center. You'll find there are videos, there are articles. There's obviously also our main Crunch website, which has got a big knowledge section. As a Crunch free member, you can download any of our business guides for free as well. So that's just on the crunch.co.uk website. Hopefully you found those useful, and if you could just go on to the next slide there, please. So, yep, we've got some useful resources for you. So, as Luke mentioned, you can always get to the Help Center from within the software, but if you ever need to go to the Help Center separately, there's a link there. And we've also given you a link to our Crunch knowledge articles. There's about nearly 500 articles there on all aspects of running a business. You know, what can you claim as an expense? How much can you how to charge people, all of these sorts of things, how to chase up clients if they aren't paying you. We've got a wealth of information on making life easier when you're running a business. And also just wanted to flag up that fairly soon we are going to be adding a community forum. So we already have a pretty active Facebook group, but we're going to be launching an actual piece of forum software where you'll be able to ask questions, get support from other people using the software and that. So please keep an eye open for that. We'll make sure we tell you. We send out a newsletter each month when you're a Crunch free member. And hopefully you'll find those useful. So that's pretty much it from us for today. As I said, I will definitely make sure that we do get back to everyone that has asked questions in these sessions. You can follow us on any of the social handles that we've got there. And other than that, just like to say good luck to you all, and hope you enjoy using Crunch Free.